Welcome to LSC, it's Sports Time. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Today I have with me Lester Sapp, who is a former basketball and tennis coach over Kickingham High School. Welcome, Lester.
Thank you, Bobby.
I'm glad to have you here. We have a history, but we'll talk about it a little bit later. We were neighbors at one time.
Well, I thought you meant because we were old.
Well, we got that kind of history too. But you didn't grow up on the peninsula. You were in Central Virginia. Where'd you grow up?
Henrico County.
All right. Now, when you was at Henrico, and I'm assuming you, like all kids growing up, you played all the sports.
Yeah, and then it graduated into high school, and then, a little further down the line.
Right. Now, when you were growing, did they have rec leagues for you to play before high school?
They had Optimus clubs.
Okay.
And they had football and no basketball, but baseball.
Okay, and it's all done through the Optimus Club? Okay. And then when you got to high school, what were the sports that you played?
Well, played football, basketball, track.
You ran track?
Yeah, that was about it.
What, was you a sprinter or hurdler or what?
I was a hurdler, ran the 880 mile relay.
Okay, now the 880, was it a sprint when you did it, or was it still considered distance?
That was a distance.
Because they told me, you run 880. I said, now the sprint.
That's right.
Back when I was in school, that was a distance.
That's right.
In fact, the 440 sometimes was thought as a distance thing. But anyway, as you were playing sports, you all at Henrico County, or?
Yeah, at Hermitage High School.
Hermitage High School. Can you remember some of the athletes that were there? Some of your coaches? One
that I lost, Fred McCracken, in a freak accident on a snowy night after a basketball game we'd won. Chester Fritz, big old football coach back then,
right.
All-American at Missouri. And that's about it.
Okay.
My memory's short-term.
Well, then you graduated, and you got recruited.
Yeah.
To Wake Forest. Man, ACC school.
That's right.
Went down to Wake Forest and loved it.
Bones McKinney.
Oh, Bones McKinney. Only guy I know of that they gave him he ran out on the floor and they were going to give him a technical. They said, I'm going to give you a technical for every step you take back.
Right.
He called two players, picked him up, and carried him back to the bench.
That's exactly right. He was smart that way.
Well, that had to be something just to meet Bones McKinney.
Yeah, I was there a long time. I missed my mom, and 3 days after getting there, I left. Yeah, there was another little guy there too named Brian Piccolo at the time.
Oh, really? Brian Piccolo. I think I remember him.
Yeah, had a little song or whatever.
Played with the Bears for a little bit. All right, so you went down to Wake Forest, stayed 3 days, got home, said, oh man,
yes,
Miss Mama's cooking.
That's right.
So what did you do then?
Transferred to VCU. At that time, it was RPI.
Okay.
And it wasn't Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. It was Richmond Professional Institute. Okay. Now it's known as VCU.
Right. And you played basketball there?
Played basketball. It's the only sport I played when I was there.
All right. Now, what position did you play, Lester?
I was a guard.
Okay. Now, you're pretty good size as a guard. Now, we're talking back when a lot of guards, even in your day, were, 6 foot or under, the little short guy that had a little speed.
Yeah, I was 6'1.5", 6'2" maybe, and but I didn't suffer from white man's disease. I could dunk a ball behind my head, so.
Okay, so you could jump.
Yeah, they put me under the basket against a little guy.
Oh, okay, take advantage of that.
That's right.
And while you were there, by the way, who was the coach?
Ed Allen at the time, and he'd been there quite a few years.
Right.
And we set the school record for at that time, for the most wins. Lynn Creech, state leading scorer for several years. Right. George Shaheen, state leading scorer. C.G. Winston. I mean, a lot of players that back then that nobody remembers anymore. Right.
Well, a lot of coaches go to college, go to health and physical education. You didn't take that. You went a different direction.
Well, I majored in physical education, but I had a minor in biology.
Yeah, because I know you take a lot of science because I had a PE degree, but biology, you had to take a little more
Yeah.
into science. The you know, so that was your chosen profession basically when you came to Hampton.
Well,
Combination.
Yeah, but I didn't come to Hampton first.
Oh, that's right. You made a drop off at a little school up the street.
Yeah,
And when we say West Point, we're not talking about it up where the Army is.
Just like Rensselaer, I couldn't pick that one either.
Right.
Yeah, the first thing I did when I went into West Point for an appointment with the principal, and he picked me up and we drove around the town, and I asked him, I said, Mr. Jewell, what is that awful odor? He said, well, it all depends. He said, if you're new like you, it's a paper mill. If you live here, it's the smell of money. And so I kind of learned to associate with that, and got to West Point, got the job, met with Clarence Majors at that time, who was the superintendent.
Right.
And things went well.
And how long did you stay there?
I was there for 2 years. I was very fortunate. We had a 42-4 record in
Wow.
2 years. Went to the state finals my first year, and played a small school that no longer exists that had two brothers named Samson, and one of them wasn't Ralph.
Okay.
But they were both 6'8", 6'9".
Wow.
And they beat us in the last quarter. And then after basketball season, I was track coach, and we won a state championship with 5 players.
It all boils down to points. If you get more points, I don't care how many players you have.
Oh yeah, Matthews High School was our rival, and in the districts they beat us 100 and something to 12, and we beat them in the state because of the way points fell. And I'd gotten a state champion come in from Georgia that was a hurdler. And we didn't have a track at West Point, so I had to make a hurdle.
It sounds a little bit like when I was at Buckrow. We didn't have a track at Buckrow either, so I understand what you went through. Yeah.
It was rough. We had a brand new gym though, so
there you go.
That's all that mattered.
Well, when you left West Point, you came to Hampton, and you took a legendary coach's place over at Sims.
I really did. This guy, Bob Hintz, I mean, he'd been around for a long time. He left and moved up to Bethel.
Yeah, went to Bethel. You took my place at Sims.
I did. And I was very glad that you'd left, because I enjoyed it there for 8 years.
You were there for 8 years.
8 years, yeah.
And while you were there, what was your coaching?
I was department chair for physical education.
Right.
Assistant football coach. I don't think the coach there, I don't think they'd won any games in the whole time that he was coaching. I was assistant basketball coach to Harold Watson.
Harold Boom Boom Watson.
You remember him. And then they were the only 2 sports that I did, you know, there. Right. But I had to oversee all of them, being the athletic director.
Now, when you were there, though, the last year you were there, you basically went up to Kecoughtan and coached the girls' basketball team while you were still at Sims.
I did. I interviewed with Mr. Dyke. Super nice guy.
Oh, Harry Dyke, good guy.
He sat down with me, and you know, I talked with him and Jim Hathaway and Larry Waddell, close friends, that, you know, all of us in the same circle.
Right.
And I went in, and the girls had not won maybe 1 game in like 7 or 8 years, and I came in, and I was a hit man. I cut
you kind of cleaned the house
I cut 6 seniors, and I wasn't very well liked. And I brought in a bunch of freshmen from Kecoughtan and a few from Spratley that had, you know, come in at that
and from
time.
Sims, not from Kecoughtan, because you didn't have freshmen at Kecoughtan at that time, did you?
Well, no, that's right. They came in as sophomores.
Right.
I'm sorry. See, the mind goes when you get old. And, you know, people like Elizabeth Stillwell, Rena Tellinger, Donna Hatch was there.
Right.
Her daddy helped me a lot. He would come to practice and he'd work with me because he didn't have an assistant coach, you know.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was tough, you know, when you got to the high school level, and I didn't have one at West Point, and I didn't have one here, so it was just a transfer.
Anytime you get a volunteer, you'll jump at it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But now you didn't stay in education. You just up and said, I'm going to try something else.
I coached there 1 year.
What was your record? Do you remember?
Yeah, we won 1 game. Lost 8 games by a total of 1 point in each game.
Wow.
And I knew it was going to be a turnaround. And then this young black man came in, and he took over, and they won the district that year. And he said, "I'm out of here."
1 year.
That's
man,
right.
You made it for him.
Gordon White, I think.
I know Gordon real well.
And then he went into administration.
Right.
And a super, super nice guy.
All right. But then you left education.
I did. I left education, went into fundraising, and before I gave up the job at Kecoughtan, I asked Mr. Dyke, I said, "Do I have a deal for you?" I said, "The team that I came in and cleaned house with is going to be good in the next 2 years." I didn't know it was going to be 1 year, but, and I said, "I'll coach them for free, and you can take the stipend and put it in the athletic department." He said, "Coach," he said, "that's great, but it doesn't work that way." And I said, "Oh."
Okay, well,
so
it was a good deal for you, but it didn't work.
Gave it up, and then 5 years later, I came back to Kecoughtan.
And you came back not in physical education, but in biology.
Yeah, and Dennis Gillikin was the principal at that time.
I remember Dennis, he was over at Bethel when I was there.
And I had one of those real easy schedules. I had 3 biologies, then I had a phys ed class, and then I had driver's education class, and I had lesson plans galore every night.
So when you got there, now you're coaching not only girls basketball, but then you take on tennis. Not only girls, but boys tennis. Had you played a lot of tennis?
I was one of those backyard tennis players. Go down to the Woodlands and play on the tennis courts there. And I'd played with some co-ed people and won a couple city tournaments. And I was just very fortunate that I was a pretty adaptable athlete.
Right.
And I learned a lot from Perk Crane, who ran the
he ran the tennis center.
And he helped me a lot, and I came to Kecoughtan and coached the girls in the fall and the boys in the spring. And
you know, it's funny you mentioned Perk Crane, because he's the reason you got to Sims.
Oh, really?
You never knew that.
No.
He was coaching, he had the JV basketball team over at Bethel. He was teaching driver's ed with me during the summer. I was running the program. He says, "You're going to have to get somebody else for me. I'm going to go to work at Shipyard." I said, "You're not going back to Bethel?" He says, "No." I said, "Don't tell anybody. I'll get somebody." I went over and got a job before anybody else knew it was open. That's how you got Sims, because I left Sims and went to Bethel.
Oh, so which one do I owe money to?
Me.
Okay.
I just want to make sure. You Perk just as a, sideline there.
Okay. Okay.
But anyway, while you're at Kecoughtan, we'll get away from the storytelling. But you're at Kecoughtan, you're coaching the girls and the boys tennis, and then you coach girls basketball again, but at 2 different times.
Right. Mm-hmm. But I kept, Mama raised a fool, now the idiot. I kept the tennis and did basketball, so I did 3 sports. I had no break. I had girls, went right into basketball, and then did the boys.
Tennis. Yeah. Wow. All right, now we're going to kind of wrap this up. But since you coached a lot of girls, and I asked Mike Talon when he was in it, because he coaches the girls, but if you were to talk to a young lady about the values and the things that you learn and can take with you from athletics onto any others endeavors, what would you say to them?
The one advantage that most of the girls have that are athletes, they're good students. And they learn very quickly. And I tell the girls, listen to your coaches.
Right.
They know what's going on. They'll know where you play best, and you'll get the most out of it. and they will be a surrogate father for you or a mother, depending on if it's a lady or if it's a guy.
Right.
And if you listen to them, they won't lead you astray.
Well, that's a good message for them. Thank you for coming in.
Oh, it was great, Bob. Thank you.
I want to thank you for tuning in to LFC and Sports Time. I want to thank my special guest, Lester Sapp. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Until next time.